Renee again with the Boys and Girls Club, and we're going to start another couple of our lessons. The last time we talked about our communities and what are safe places in our communities and what are unsafe places in our community. Today we're going to focus on making the right choices and learning that we are all able to make the correct choices, because sometimes we can try to say things like we're too young, we're too little, I don't know how to make the right choice. We can allow our friends to make choices for us, which are not always good choices. We all need to understand that we are responsible for ourselves, and that also our choices come with consequences. So when you make smart choices, when you make correct choices to not try drugs, to not try alcohol, you have good consequences in your life that come from that. But when you try drugs, when you try alcohol, you will have consequences from that. Some of the consequences will be you will do poorly in school. You would get sick. You would probably get in trouble with your parents. You could get in trouble with the police. There are a lot of consequences that come from everything. And a lot of the times we don't stop and think. We don't practice the pause that allows us to really think about when we make a choice, when we make a decision, the consequences that are going to come from that. Because everything we do will have a consequence. It's either going to be a good consequence or a harmful consequence. And my goal for you all is that you will always live your lives where you practice the pause, where you stop and think, where you really consider what is going to happen if you make the wrong choice compared to if you make the correct choice, and that will always lead you into actually making the correct choice. Because if we will always just stop and pause and not be so impulsive, because a lot of the times we'll be very impulsive and we don't really think things out. We're not really thinking thoroughly what can happen to us if we make this choice. What would happen if I went to this unsafe place in my community? Because in your mind, you might rationalize it and say, well, I just want to go and hang out with my friends, and I know my friends are at this house, and I know they drink, I know they do drugs there, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to go there and I'm just going to hang out. What we're doing is we're really just letting our feelings dictate what we do, and we're letting our feelings drive us into putting us into a harmful situation. So what is going to happen when we get there? Are we going to be strong enough then to say no to drugs and alcohol? Probably not, because the goal is for you to never put yourself into situations where you are at harm, where you are at risk. The goal is for you to always make smart choices, right choices that never put you around those things, so that you never have to be put in a situation where you are witnessing and being around stuff that you don't really need to be around. So a lot of times the first smart choice that we can make is just by saying no, that we don't want to go to these places and we don't want to be around this stuff. But secondly, there will come times where you have done everything that you know to do to not put yourself in these situations, and you are still going to be around drugs and alcohol. It's at that time that you need to have the knowledge and the power, and mainly the willpower, the assertiveness, to be able to say no when someone asks you those things. Because it is okay to say no. Because we live in a world sometimes where people try to make us feel guilty because we don't want to do things, and that we say no, and people will say, well, you're just not really my friend because you say no. You don't really like me, and that's why you say no. I knew you thought you were too good, and that's why you said no. It is okay to say no. Do not ever let anyone allow you or make you feel inferior because you want to say no to anything. It is okay to say no, because a lot of the times the right choice, the smart choice that you can make is just saying no to stuff. It's okay to say no to drugs and alcohol no matter who is trying to ask you to take it. That is a smart choice. That is a right choice. How can you learn to make good choices? Learning how to make good choices starts with putting thought behind it. Understand that the choices that you make have consequences. Once you really start understanding that, it will change your life. It will change how you interact with people. It will change how your situations occur, because a lot of the times we don't really think things out before we do them. So everything just seems to escalate. And that's what really gets us into trouble. One of the things we might do, just putting it into simple terms, you might have a homework that's due the next day. But instead of doing your homework, you will just kind of think about, well, I would rather play on my phone, I would rather play my video game, and I'll think about my homework later. Well, you are making a not so smart choice in that moment, right? And you're not really thinking about the consequence, because you're only thinking about the now. And the right now, you want to have fun. But the next day when you're sitting in class and your teacher asks for your work and you don't have your work and you get a 0, well, then you're not happy, you're upset, but that's a consequence that came from a wrong choice that you made. So you really need to be thinking about, how am I going to make the right decision? So, in talking about how to make a right choice, the correct choice, we should always practice the pause, right? And when we practice the pause, there are 7 steps to consider in making that good choice. The first one is to realize that the choices we make in life often determine the path that our lives will take. So, in saying that, what that means is a lot of the times the choices that you make right now, the important choices, I'm not talking about like what you want to eat for lunch, things like that, but the choices that you make right now, considering drugs, alcohol, doing your homework, things like that, those will determine the path that your life takes. Those are the consequences that I talked about that you'll have. So maybe our first step is to realize that the choice that we make is going to impact our life, that it's going to put us on a pathway, and is that path the correct path, or is that path the wrong path? 2, we probably want to describe our problem that is being faced and recognize that there might be several solutions. So sometimes it's not so easy as right or wrong answer. Sometimes it's choosing the most right choice, the most correct choice, the choice that is best going to help us resolve the situation, help us get on the path that we need to be on. Number 3, to making your part of your 7 steps to consider and making the correct choice, the right choice, would be know the results from the choice you are about to make. That's practicing the pause. That's thinking about, when I make this choice, am I going to be happy with the results? So if you make a choice to drink, are you going to be happy the next day when you wake up sick? Are you going to be excited when you get in trouble? Are those the things that you want in life? Because they're probably not. I would hope that they're not. I would hope that at this point I've already started giving you knowledge and a foundation to understand that drugs and alcohol are never a good thing for you to do. They're never a good thing for you to try, even just one time. They can cause havoc in our lives. We can have grave consequences just from one sip, so we don't need to do any of that. Number 4 is getting good information or advice from others you respect. Who do you respect? In other words, who do you look up to? Do you look up to your teacher, your principal, your mom, dad, your special person, your aunt, uncle, grandma, grandpa? You might have a friend that you look up to. You would go to them and ask them for advice. You might ask them for their thoughts, for their opinions, and their guidance on what you need to do to help you yourself make the right choice. And you would take that into consideration with everything else. Number 5 would be, do not rush blindly into situations. That is what I keep talking to you about. That's practicing the pause. That's just saying, hold up, I'm just not going to fly off. I'm not going to be driven by emotion right now. I'm not going to be driven by anger right now. I'm really going to stop. I'm really going to think about this, because I want to make the best decision, the correct decision, the smart choice to help my life be what I want my life to be, to put me on the path that I need need to be on to help me do the things in life that I want to do. I'm going to stop right now, and I'm not going to rush into anything. I'm going to pause, and I'm going to think about this. Number 6 is think about how the decision will affect you. That's part of the pause. It's also not just thinking about 10 years from now, 5 years from now, 2 days from now. It's thinking about how that's going to affect you here, right now. How is that going to affect your life? How is it going to affect your life right in this moment if you do drugs, if you do alcohol, if you do something that you know you shouldn't do, if you partake. So we're going to live in the positive side of our consequence, or we're going to live in the negative side. So that's why we really need to focus on our 7 steps. Our last step is to make a plan for how you will carry out your decision. So how are you going to go about enacting what you have thought about, what you have already decided? What is that going to look like in your life? That's going to look different from everyone. That might look like avoiding the place that you've made a decision you're not going to go there. So you might have to think about ways that you can go around that place, other areas for you to focus on. It might mean making a hard decision about not hanging out with people again. So you might want to start focusing on how to make new friends. Whatever that looks like, you need to think about your plan, and those are your 7 steps into making a good choice.